Hello everyone. In this narrated presentation, we're going to look at another type of advocacy, community or class advocacy. We're also going to look at how to be a leader in the advocacy field. Let's get started. So when you're thinking about advocacy, now that you have a base understanding, let's look at the first steps. Being an advocate requires some personal resources, knowledge of the issues, questions, or concerns of the people for whom a person might be advocating, the ability to work with those who oppose the issue or question, its value or purpose, and an ability to work with those needing or wanting an advocate, the comfort in speaking to those with power or connections to power, skills in organizing and setting a strategy, skills in negotiating with others, and persistence until a desired goal is achieved. So think, which of these resources do you have now, and how do you feel about gaining the other resources? So as far as gaining and using knowledge, what do you need to know to advocate with someone? Well, you need to know, what are their strengths? What challenges are they facing? What is keeping them from achieving their goal? And how can you be helpful to them? So some steps you might take: if someone needed shelter, if their family needed food, and if they didn't have adequate clothing, housing, or a safe place to be, you need to ask yourself if you have answers to these questions, or consider them as you're developing your case. Also, how would you support someone who needed medical care and was afraid, or had a recently diagnosed illness but did not understand what the doctor had said? We've discussed health literacy, and absolutely that kind of context still has a place in advocacy. So now that we've defined advocacy, looked at the first steps of advocacy work, and looked very intently at case advocacy or advocacy for the individual, let's look at class advocacy, which is helping groups of people, a neighborhood, or a whole community. Some examples of class advocacy include assuring that all teen women in the community have access to health care and education about sexual behavior, giving testimony about a group, neighborhood, or community that faced a health challenge at a school board meeting, testifying before a city council or state legislative committee about an unmet healthcare need, or talking about a community health challenge on radio or TV. So in class advocacy, what comes next? You need to gather data about the problem or challenge. Who knows or who needs to know? What is already known about the issue? What data exists about the issue? You need to be able to decide who can influence a change or resolve the problem, develop a strategy, and determine tactics to use. All of this planning happens before the very first conversation you have. So let's look at the couple different categories in which you'd be able to address certain people who have power. You have people in public influence, which would include the general public, media, voters, a region or group, and organizations. You have the VIP influence, which are experts, elected officials, special interest groups, government agencies, and businesses. There are financial influences, which include campaigns, investors, consumers, and competitors. Then there's also the personal influence, which includes family, friends, churches or faith-based organizations, the inner circle that people have, and their future ambitions. So here are some additional questions to consider. Who has the power to decide what we do? Who has influence on the decision maker? Who has the most influence on this person? Who do we have access to? And who do we know and have access to that can influence all of the other players? This is strategic, high-level thinking about how to develop these conversations and communication messaging in order for you to get your message out there and help other people who have the ability to make decisions and influence power understand the position that you or the person you're advocating for is coming from. So now that you have that background information, start plugging in the strategy, which is the plan for success, how we intend to achieve the desired goal. So what are the strategies we can use? How will we engage allies? And who will be the spokesperson? Once the strategy is in place, you look at specific tactics, which are the steps we intend to take to use the strategies that will lead to success. This would include presenting data and evidence, giving testimony, providing support and resources, or taking direct action. Once you're ready to build or make a case, you need to prepare the written materials, which includes writing a valid case study, providing oral testimony using the case study, and supporting your client in giving testimony. The more this can be evidenced and supported, the better. You also need to enlist others with more power or influence to take on your case. So build a cadre of supporters, make media contacts, and find additional allies. The larger your platform, the stronger your message. You also need to be prepared to negotiate. Be clear about a definition of success. What is the most important result that you seek? What are you willing to accept as a possible result? And which points would you concede in your advocacy? Pay special attention to ways your proposal or proposition is heard by others. As you prepare for advocacy, consider as many possible responses as you can. Observe your audience, those you intend to influence, to determine how you are being viewed. And consider body language, facial expressions, and attention. Nonverbal communication, as you'll remember, is just as important, if not more important, as the things you say. Remember your goal and the strategy and be confident. Finally, take a minute to review this organized advocacy in action. Step 1, train participants, develop skills, increase knowledge, and build capacity. Name the issue and choose the area of focus. Step 2, define, design, and do community diagnosis or community needs assessment. Step 3, analyze results of that community diagnosis. Step 4, select action or activity and implement. Step 5, maintain and enforce action or activity and repeat the process as necessary. An action compels another entity to do something to change the environment or the place people live for the well-being of all. An action is achievable and is long-term or sustainable. An activity, on the other hand, is an educational intervention that leads up to and supports an action. Being aware of these terms as more than just their definitions is really important because you need to be able to evaluate your advocacy practice as well as you're able to implement it. So you can learn and improve as you continue to do a lot of advocacy work in your course as a community health worker.